Welcome to eDiscovery Leaders Live, where I get a chance to chat with luminaries in eDiscovery and related areas. This broadcast is sponsored by Reveal-Brainspace, the industry's leading AI eDiscovery platform. Don't forget to subscribe to watch me, George Socha, weekly with leaders in eDiscovery. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to eDiscovery Leaders Live, hosted by ACEDS and sponsored by Reveal. I am George Socha, heading up brand awareness at Reveal. On each episode of eDiscovery Leaders Live, I get the chance to chat with luminaries in eDiscovery and related areas. Past episodes are available on the Reveal website. Go to revealdata.com, select resources, then select eDiscovery Leaders Live. Our guest this week is David Cohen. Dave is a partner at Reed Smith, and heads up, I think, perhaps all things eDiscovery there, or am I giving you too much credit?
Most things eDiscovery, our records and eDiscovery practice group, which is our lawyers. We also have a tech subsidiary that is headed up by Brian Bradshaw called Gravity's Tech. So they're more on the tech side of things, but I head up the lawyer side.
Okay, great. Why don't, before we get into the subject matter, the topic for today, for those three people in our audience who don't already know who you are, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into eDiscovery and what you do today?
Yes, well, believe it or not, when I started practicing, there was no eDiscovery yet. So I came up as a garden variety litigator in a big law firm. But early on in my career, we know how the nasty work that nobody wants to do flows downward. So I got put on some big document cases where the key is, how do we get a handle on these 2 million hard copy documents? And we don't have computer imaging, much less electronic versions of documents yet. How do we get them managed and organized? So I started out doing what we call automated litigation support. And the first databases that I was involved in helping to build, we had consultants from Price Waterhouse and mainframe computers and old programs like BASIS and BRS and names that, unless you're really old like myself, and I'm sure you're too young for this, George. But
oh no, I used all those same programs.
Yeah, so that was a hobby for a while, and once you've done something once at a big firm, you become, oh yeah, big document case. Cohen knows how to do those. Get him involved. So I developed a hobby, a specialty in helping or other trial teams with big document cases. And eventually that got replaced. Automated litigation support got replaced with eDiscovery. And a lot of people ask, well, when did eDiscovery start? I went back and checked. The first time I ever gave a public talk on electronic discovery was a conference in New York in 2000, the year 2000. And I don't think I'd heard of it much before I was asked to do that talk. And it wasn't eDiscovery yet, it was electronic discovery. So I think we can trace the beginnings back to about then. But it was in 2005 that we actually started a practice group in eDiscovery as its own standalone practice group. And eventually there was so much work in eDiscovery that I couldn't balance my continued litigation practice. And I went from being, 30% to 40% to 50%. And now virtually all my practice is either eDiscovery or the related field of information governance, which is what happens before eDiscovery. But in addition to sort of the traditional document review and those kinds of things, it does include an advocacy component. I get to do arguments and briefing on discovery issues still. So I can still use some of my litigation experience in the eDiscovery practice.
Well, we are going to boomerang, if you will, or rocket forward, whatever phrase you want to use, from those early days of pulling the boxes, cut lids off, dusting them, brushing them off first so you didn't breathe in too much bad stuff, hoping nothing inside nasty was inside of a box. We're going to go from those days right up to the hot topic of the moment, which is generative AI. there are a wide range of views about whether to do anything and what to do, running from I can't wait to get started to don't ever let my data near that or that near my data. So talk.
Okay, well, we should start out with, first of all, you have two choices in life going forward. You can try to ignore it and hope it goes away. It's not going to, and you will become obsolete. So don't do that.
Okay.
You need to start understanding this new technology, and you need to embrace this new technology and figure out how to leverage it, because there are lots of ways that it can actually help you do your job and add efficiency and add value for your clients. So accept it. It's there. It's not just a fad. It's going to be around, and it's going to keep getting better and better. So we'll start with that, but then we have to follow that quickly with the warnings. And the first warning is be really careful. You know, everybody's really excited about this free public version of generative AI, ChatGPT. And it's cool and it can do cool things, but definitely some things you have to be careful of and worry about. And the first thing is, don't put any sensitive data into it or privileged information, because it is not private. The terms of use with ChatGPT say that they have access to your data. And so you could be held to waive privilege. You could certainly be jeopardizing client confidences. So you don't want to use it for any sensitive information. So that is caution number one. And by the way, I give the same caution to some other public programs. I know people are out there using Google Translate to translate litigation documents. Same kind of terms of use. You're giving up confidentiality. There are private versions of both, of translation programs and of GPT technology, that don't have those risks. So if you need to use it for sensitive data, you might have to pay something, but you can't use the public version.
All right. How does that saying go? If you're not paying, you're the product.
That's a good, nothing. I don't want to say that there's no such thing as a free lunch, because it can do some pretty cool things for free. And if all you're doing is researching, tell me the leading cases on attorney-client privilege in Illinois, which is a chat that I ran recently. It's a great head start. You say you're the first hour or two of your research. So some good things are free, but don't use it for sensitive client information, at least not the free version. And then warning number two is don't trust it. So it gives very convincing answers. It's some originally said some of the earlier versions were like an advanced law student. Now, with the continued evolution, which is occurring at a rapid pace, some would say senior associate level answers and memos in terms of how they sound. But the difference is that it can tell you information in a very authoritative, convincing sounding way, and the information can prove to be completely false. It can make things up. Sometimes that's referred to as hallucinations. So anything that you get out of ChatGPT does have to be independently checked. It can give you a head start, but don't trust it. Now, a lot of people right now, what they're working on in terms of advances to GPT is so-called guardrails around the technology to help overcome these issues. And I expect that there will be rapid progress on both fronts. First of all, there's going to be more options for keeping data private. But in addition, there's going to be more checks to avoid hallucinations and biases, which can also creep in. So those are some of the cautions today, but I encourage everybody to get in and, without using sensitive data, start playing with it and learn its capabilities, because it can do some amazing things, and it's just going to get better and better.
We could go one of two directions right now. One would be, what could people do with ChatGPT today, as in the public version where anything that goes in is fair game? Or the other direction could be, let's assume guardrails are in place. What are the possibilities then? Which path would you like to follow in this adventure?
Let's do the first, because the second is more prediction, and ultimately either that generative AI or other AI is going to replace a lot of what we do, and some would say most of what we do. So really the question is when, how long until I'm replaced. I was at the summit on legal innovation and disruption last week in Chicago, and my topic was generative AI, when will I be replaced? So kind of a somber topic, but I tried to put a positive spin on it. I don't think any of us would mind moving from the 40-hour work week, or in the case of lawyers, 50-hour work week, down to the 30-hour work week. I wouldn't mind having some percentage of what I do be replaced, as long as I'm still getting a paycheck and can support myself. I wouldn't mind spending more time at the beach. But there are things, so that's the future. And we had a lively, after my presentation, there was a panel discussion, and we had a little bit of a discussion and debate. Is this going to be like other technology where it really doesn't cut our hours? It just makes us more efficient and actually creates more jobs. And we've seen other technology which was supposed to replace lawyers, and arguably AI technology like predictive coding, like Reveal's products, Brainspace, and so on. And we found that it makes great advances and makes us much more effective, but it hasn't replaced lawyers. There's as many lawyers involved in e-discovery now and more than there were 10 years ago before the broad adoption of this kind of technology. So is GPT going to be like that, where it's just another tool we leverage? Or does artificial intelligence have the potential to shorten our work week? And on that question, I did correctly predict that predictive coding wasn't going to displace lawyers. People were worried about that, and I knew that it would make us more efficient, but data is proliferating so much, and there's so many things that lawyers need to do. I didn't really think it was going to replace lawyers. I actually have a different view about AI, like this generative AI. And I don't think we're talking about next week or even next year. But over time, this technology can do so many things. And it's not just the menial tasks. It's not just making a decision, binary decision, like relevant, not relevant, privileged, not privileged. It has the ability to do things that formerly were considered creative things that machines just couldn't do. It has the ability not just to win chess games, but to create symphonies that experts can't tell from human symphonies, books that experts aren't going to be able to tell from human books, artwork. It has amazing capability. And so I think the point will be reached where technology is able to replace much of what humans do. And the positive spin on that is shorten our work week, but make us more productive so that we can enjoy an increased standard of living. The downside of that, and the fear is, oh, is this going to mean we're all going to become unemployed? I don't think that's going to happen, but people do have that concern as well.
Or do we get a shortened work week and a shortened paycheck?
That could happen too. But the thing to think about is these tools really do add to the productivity of society. And so why shouldn't it be more affluence for all? It's like, when the assembly line came out in automobiles, we had the best of both worlds, better cars and lower prices for the cars, and ultimately heightened standard of living. And I don't see why AI can't be the same kind of picture. Makes us more productive, generates more wealth in the world. And if we can at least split that wealth up in some kind of equitable way, it could rising tide could raise all boats. That's the hope. We have to be careful though, and we have to go, we've got to consider all those issues. Is this something that only the wealthy are going to be able to exploit, only the owners of the technology, or is this something that can be used for the good of all society? So I've managed to completely dodge your question of what we can use GPT for today. I don't know if you want to keep talking about this or move to that.
Well, let's go back and see if what would you say are some things people can appropriately do today with that type of technology?
Absolutely. So let me give a shout out to Debbie Reynolds. You may know her as the Data Diva, who has, I think, one of the most popular podcasts on data issues. She gave a talk at Solid, and so I'm going to hold her out as the expert and refer you to her for details. But she gave us all like 5 tips of great things that GPT can do for you today. And I'll just mention a couple of them. One is, and I've mentioned one, We actually asked it, give us, tell us what the leading privilege cases are in Illinois, today. And it gave us a great answer, a great starting point. We asked it, why should people not spoliate evidence? And it gave us a very good reasoned answer to that, like you would expect to get from, an attorney. Then we asked it to take that answer and put it into a haiku. And here's the haiku I have in front of me. It's: preserve evidence. Destroying it leads to cost. Legal woes abound. So, one of the cool things about it is you can tell it, write this in a haiku, write this in the style of a rocker, write this in, anyone's style, write this at a 5th grade vocabulary level, which, by the way, is what I'm told the average level for social media posts. So that's one thing. It can be a starter. It can be used to summarize documents. So you've written the 2,000 word essay, or somebody has sent you the 2,000 or 5,000 word essay that you're supposed to read. You can tell ChatGPT, give me a 200 word summary or a 100 word summary, and it will do a pretty darn good job of that. So it can be used to really create those kinds of summaries. Ultimately, I'd like to see trying it on deposition summaries. Again, right now we have to worry about confidentiality, but as those things are overcome, writing summaries. You can start writing a paper on something. And I hadn't even thought about this until Debbie Reynolds mentioned it. And tell it to finish the paper. Okay, you write the first, you write the introduction and the first couple sections, and say, okay, finish this. I want, it's half done. Do the other half, and it will do. And I'm not saying you don't have to edit it. Of course you do, but it can really be a time saver. It can give you ideas of, hey, I want to do a podcast on thought leaders in e-discovery. What are some of the topics we could think about? If we asked us that, it would come up with 10 suggestions, and they might not all be great, but starting point, some of them would be good.
So could I ask it to write me a brief in the style of David Cohen?
That would be, I don't know if there's enough David Cohen briefs out there, but all I can tell you is it would be an excellent brief if it could actually do that. So.
I know we only have a few minutes, maybe 7 minutes left here. I want to make sure we make good use of your time. You've clearly given a lot of thought to whence we might go with all of this. What are some suggestions for people as they're exploring this?
Yes. Well, I think the first thing you need to do, and organizations that are looking at this need to do, is come up with some GPT guidelines, because some of the warnings that I'm giving, and these aren't comprehensive, there's other things to think about as well. I think that organizations that are playing with this, or whose employees are playing with this, they need to instruct employees what you can do and what you can't do with this technology. And there's lots of issues out there, including ethical issues. I mean, what about the college student who's writing a paper? Can they use this? Is this plagiarism if they have GPT help them with their paper, or write part of it that they then edit? How does it, we accept if they use spell check or a grammar checker, that's okay. Where do you draw the line there? And so universities need to develop guidelines on using generative technology. And for other reasons, businesses need those guidelines. If, I don't have to worry about getting a grade on something, but if I'm doing a memo, if I'm an associate doing a memo for a partner and I use GPT to give me a head start, do I need to tell the partner that this isn't 100% my work, but I used this tool? Or is it ethically okay not to do that? So I think law firms and corporations and anybody who's using generative AI right now should start by coming up with some guidelines and warnings and training. Having said that, don't ignore it because you're afraid of these issues, because again, it's coming, and you want to be on top of it. And what we're doing at Reed Smith is we're doing a few things, but one of them is an exploratory group to see, not just in theory, but in practice, how can we start using this technology immediately to be more efficient and effective and deliver more value for our clients. I've got a guy on my e-discovery team who is Marcin Krieger, who is going on ChatGPT every day and working with it and trying things with it and helping us, figure out what's next. How can we use this to be more efficient? And I think other companies should also have people doing that. It's worth the investment in time, because this is what's going to make you more efficient and give you a competitive advantage over other companies in the same industry.
Are you alone in those type of initiatives as a law firm? Do you have plenty of company? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, I do. If you read the news reports, they're out there, and I do talk to some of the leaders in other law firms. So if you read the news reports, every law firm will claim that they're doing something. But some of them are doing more than others. So every law firm, every big law firm should be investigating this right now. We do have software providers. I'm sure Reveal's looking at this, and how are we going to put this into our review platform and make the best use of it. That's going on, I think, throughout the legal industry. And that's great that so many different people are working on it and working on it independently, because some things are going to work and some things aren't going to work. And the more of a laboratory we have for different people trying different things, the more good ideas we're going to come up with.
Well, David, I know you need to run, but thank you very much for joining us today. David Cohen is a partner at Reed Smith, where he helps steer the e-discovery ship there with the shift to generative AI. How's that for a recovery? I'm George Socha.
I do want to give one more plug, George.
Oh, yeah.
For the organization that you created, EDRM. As many people know, George co-created EDRM, and that has now become an organization that not only is devoted to keeping that model preserved and updated, but also to other thought leadership in the e-discovery industry and technology industry. And we're looking to start a team to work on generative AI issues and guidelines through EDRM. Of course, that's volunteer work, but if anybody's interested in being involved in that, I chair the EDRM Board of Trustees. George is one of the esteemed advisors to the company. So be in touch with us if you're interested in getting involved with that, because we're just in the process of putting together that team to look at these uses of generative AI.
For anybody interested in getting in touch, what's the best way for them to do it?
So my email address is drcohen, that's DRCOHEN, @reedsmith.com. And I'll even give out my number here. My cell is 412-512-3762. And George, I leave it to you whether you want to similarly expose your contact information.
As if it's not there for the world. GSOCHA @revealdata.com and 651-336-3940. Thank you again, David. And again, David Cohen is a partner at Reed Smith. I am George Socha. This has been eDiscovery Leaders Live, hosted by ACEDS and sponsored by Reveal. Dave, thanks for taking the time to join us today.
Thanks very much, George.